Brenda, and I'm from Rock and Load. So I just wanted to take the time to say thank you for you taking the time out of your busy schedule to talk with me. And
thanks for talking too.
You're welcome. I think a good place to start our interview would be to talk a little about your new album, Suicide Society. It's your 15th studio album, which will be released on the 18th of September of this year. Now, my first question is, how long did it take to write this record, Jeff, and was your approach to this album different to previous records?
Well, it took the usual amount of time it takes me to do a record, probably in total maybe 4.5 months from starting to write till finishing. But there was a very noticeable change and gap in that schedule. I mean, the total work was probably about 4.5 months on the record itself, start to finish, but I had to take a break. In December 2014, my singer of almost 11, 12 years in guitar, and he also played guitar live with us, Dave Padden, I was just about to book his flight to come in to do the record. I'd written and recorded all the music and written the lyrics and the melodies, and I sang a demo on CD for him of the song, so he'd know what I was thinking, what I was hoping he would do. And he told me literally days before I was booking his flight to come in December that I think he said, I haven't been happy for a long time. You must have seen it, this kind of stuff. And he explained why he wanted to leave. He thought it was best to leave, and he was not happy. And the first thing I did, I was panicked. I said, what do you mean? What did I do? Or is there anything I can do financially? Or what can I do to make you happy? And he basically said it had nothing to do with me, nothing to do with the band, nothing to do with money. And I said, you sure? Money won't help? He was like, no. He just didn't want to go away anymore. We've been touring and traveling more and more every album we put out now, because the last 4 records, the sales have slowly gone up and up and up and up. And now it looks, when he saw the schedule for this year coming up, I think it sort of scared him, because he just wanted to stay in Vancouver, I think. I don't know the exact reasons, but he has been for 3-4 years not completely into doing this and doing the records and doing the touring, and it seemed like everybody else was excited to do this, and he was like, oh, okay, yeah, I have to go, that kind of thing. And whatever the reason is, of course it's better that he just not be unhappy and, stay away. If it's not making you happy, get out of it quick. I would get out if I wasn't happy with it. And it's actually, at the time, it was a big panic, because I was all ready to do this, and I was happy and excited about the music and blah, blah, blah. And then it was like a bit of a panic, like, oh, now what do I do? I mean, Dave's been with me for almost 12 years.
Wow. So, yeah. I can see why it would take so long then, if you were panicking about your friend. I mean, you had All Right to Rock and Roll, didn't you? Yeah.
Yeah, it was very, I'd say a week of pure panic, and then another week of almost depression and anxiety, because it was like, now what am I going to do? And then you started getting like, this is my buddy that was 12 years in the band, and he was the core part of the band with me, and this is your life, this is your career, this is everything, and then there becomes the now what,
Yeah.
So it was basically, I spent a week or two looking for a singer until I talked to a few guys and watched some people on YouTube, and just spent a week or two on the computer and the phone, actually, and then I realized I could do this. I would like to do this. I could have some attitude on there that Dave didn't have in the last years, which was he's got a great voice and he can hit the notes and he's a good singer, but unless as a singer you have that attitude and that feel and you're loving what you're doing, it doesn't come out in the music. And that's really, Dave was just going through the motions and getting a check, doing a record, getting a check, and getting home. He was always looking forward to his flight home. And I just couldn't understand that, but being the way I am. But that's what I said. I said, I think I won't be able to sing like him. I don't have his voice, but I can get the attitude. And then I realized, don't fool yourself. You're not 20 years old, and you're not a full-time singer. I did sing on 3 previous Annihilator CDs, but that was a long time ago. And things change. Your voice changes, and you get older.
Yeah.
But the thing about that was, I said, you know what? I took it as a challenge and said, you know what? I can do this, but I can't do it right now. So I put the album on hold. I went and took vocal lessons.
No,
And
really?
was
Wow.
very specific about what I wanted to get rid of in my voice, because I listened back to my early albums and realized the reason the record King of the Kill, for example, was a big seller, and I was singing on it. I realized the reason was not my singing. The reason was because of the songs, and I just squeaked by vocally, and I think people listened to it knew I wasn't a great singer at all, but the song was too good to ignore, and that's why that album and song did very well. So I said, well, why don't I go back and retrain to get rid of the things I don't like and find out if and what there is that is good, and just focus on the good stuff. And I did a second analysis, so to speak, on paper, and I said, what do I sing in the shower? What do I sing when I'm doing laundry?
Yeah.
What do you do when you're in the car and there's no music on, and you find yourself looking like an idiot singing, which after that I got tinted windows, so I'm good now. But it was like, well, my favorite singers are Dio, Dickinson, and of course number one Halford. But who are the guys? But I can't sing that stuff. It's impossible. That's the one in a billion people I just mentioned. Literally one in a billion. So I thought, well, who do I sing when I'm singing in the shower and walking around and driving? And I realized, put it down on paper. Osborne, Staley, Hetfield, Mustaine.
Oh, fantastic mix. I love Staley's voice.
Staley was a late blooming artist for me.
Yeah.
When they were huge and he was alive, I didn't even notice them. And then when he dies and the band's sort of gone, and 2010 hit, and we played Sonosphere with Alice in Chains and Megadeth and Rammstein.
Yeah.
And I watched that show, and I was like, whoa, great songs. And it wasn't Lane Staley, of course, but it was just like, I remember these tunes on the radio, and then I went back and bought the records, iTunes or whatever, and I got into them how many years after it was over, the original lineup. So
I did the same.
I just put it on paper and just said, well, here's the things I like about my voice. They're very minimal, but I think I love singing the style that these guys are doing. I love singing along to their songs. And that was the end of analyzing. I'd taken the lessons. I'd learned how to warm up. I've got my sort of style figured out on paper before I even started singing it. And I just went in and said, hey, man, there's no pressure. You just go in, and if you could get rid of those things you don't like, you've taken the lessons, you like these singers, you've got a good record, musically, song-wise, that's it. Go in and pretend you're a rock star. You just go do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do know exactly. I mean, I read somewhere recently that Steve Vai actually had said, do not worry about your weaknesses. You work on your strengths, because that's what you're supposed to be doing. Ignore the weaknesses. So you did exactly that then. You took your good points and worked on them.
Yeah, I took the bad ones and deleted them. I said, I'm not doing them anymore.
Exactly. Well done.
Well, it's like you're left with your strengths, right? I mean, some guitar players try to do too much. They try to do lead guitar and rhythm guitar and write songs when maybe they're great at songs and rhythm guitar, but they can't play solos. It's like, just give it up. It's a hobby. Just focus on, I don't mean guitar, I mean give up the lead guitar. That's a hobby. Just leave it alone and concentrate on your strengths of writing and rhythm, because those are more important than guitar solos.
But so can I safely say then it took you around 5 months to get this album up and running?
4.5.
4.5 months. Okay.
We also kept Dave leaving a secret for over half a year, which was quite a feat, quite a challenge, believe it or not.
Really?
Because there are some places in the world that actually would like to know that and gossip and print and all that stuff. In certain countries we do very well, in certain we don't, and some we're just sort of in the middle,
Yeah.
And there was a lot of, there was only 3 people that knew. Besides Dave and I, there was my fiance, there was my drummer Mike, and the original singer-drummer for the band Exciter, which is a Canadian thrash band from like 1980 vibe. So nobody knew for over 6 months. Dave didn't tell anyone, and I didn't say anything, so it was good. I'm glad nobody found out about it until the first thing they found out about was, wait, what happened? The singer left? What the hell is Waters doing now? Or what's he going to do now? And the second after they said that in their brain, they had a link to click on to at least hear some clips from the album and realized that, oh, maybe I will check it out just to see.
Yeah, just to see what happened after that. So can I go on to my next question then, because that kind of leads in nicely. What can the fans expect then from this, your latest offering?
Oh, well, every artist is going to tell you how great their new album is and blah, blah, blah. It's like second to their classic album, all that baloney, which is usually that's just, but the other side is, the honest musicians, when they say that, actually mean it, because when you draw a painting or you poem, anything creative, a song, whatever, any artist that creates something is proud. Usually they're proud of what they're doing, and they're especially excited about it right after they finish it. So, it's a very, very crappy time actually to ask the artist what they think, because
No, I want to know what you think. Don't you worry. You tell me what you think, and I'll tell you whether I'm thinking you're being big-headed or not.
Okay. Most interviews I've done in the last couple of days in Germany and everywhere, I just don't answer it. I just say, leave it to you. Even in the press release, there's some silly quote I did about, like Joe Perry from Aerosmith said, "Let the music do the talking." Just let that speak for itself. But my actual real feeling off record kind of thing, even though you can print this whatever, it's like,
I won't print it if you don't want me to. Okay, I won't print it if you don't want me to.
This is definitely usable. I mean, my feeling, to talking to people would be, you got to be the judge, because of course I'm going to love it. I'm going to say good things. But my real feeling is, I think I got a real special one.
Thank you. You don't know what that means. Thank you for opening up. That's wonderful. Because all my friends are in bands, and I know from experience when they've done a record, they're jumping up and down. They're like full of beans. So I expect you are the exact same. And you're just human at the end of the day. And if you're proud of your work, be proud of your work.
But here's
there's a but.
There's a but to that is,
yeah.
I think the pros, I'm going to say the pros, the guys that just do this for a career, unless they're spoiled rotten and they've sold so many records that it doesn't matter. The trick as an artist is to enjoy the moment when you finished it and created it, because that's the highest you'll ever get from the music. And
yes.
Other than the different aspect of all of a sudden you walk on stage at Wacken Festival and there's 80,000 people singing your song, that's that's like jumping out of a plane. But the high you get from just finishing the song or the record, and when you have the CD in your hands, you take a day to just soak that in, and it's emotional if you went through a lot to get it. But the trick is to put that away and say, right on, I got what I think is a killer record or this or that. Take it, treat yourself to a nice dinner, go bottle of champagne, do whatever you want to do, enjoy yourself. But then you have to block it off and level everything out and be realistic that a year later, if you're honest, you're going to look back at that record and you are probably going to say, I only had 2 or 3 good songs in the record.
No, don't say that.
Hey, you know what? You talk to Van Halen, you talk to AC/DC, you talk to any of these bands and get them one-on-one and really get into that creative journalist question. And you'll find that guys like Van Halen don't even remember some of their own songs that we worshipped as teenagers. And they don't even remember the solo or the that's the way most artists are. And there's a reason, because they don't walk around thinking, I'm the greatest, my songs are amazing. They walk around a year later and go, damn it, I should have better songs at the end of that album.
You're just your own worst critic then?
Yeah, you have to do it. Otherwise, how can you live life without being an asshole or even improve on what you're doing?
Yeah. What's this? You've titled the new album Suicide Society, and I find that a really interesting title. Can you tell me more about why you've named that?
Well, the title was the very last thing, and the cover was the last thing. It starts with the music, demoing the music. When all the songs are demoed musically, I already have an idea of where words go and maybe some melodies. But then I sit down, shut the studio down, go upstairs, go outside, deck, backyard, car, whatever I do, car with an iPhone, whatever, and just sit there and start on the lyrics and hum along what I had in my head before, and then I just start with lyrics. End with lyrics, and then. So I finish maybe 9 or 10 or whatever songs in the record, and then I sit back with them all done, and I just take the titles, and I say, do any of these titles sound like they might make a name for a record? And some records we all have, bands have, Like in my band, we have a song Alice in Hell. We have a title Alice in Hell. Song King of the Kill. Album called King of the Kill. But other times you have names that are not songs because your titles just don't work. So the Suicide Society song gets a lot of pressure because it's the first track on the album. It's the title track. But yeah, I think it just became that because it was the one song that actually kind of meant something to me, and it was a bit of a change in me when I wrote that song. It was sort of like in a nutshell, it was basically a typical cliche subject that all kinds of bands write about, which is what we're doing to the environment and to each other, right? And what we do to each other could be drugs or pollution or just politicians, terrorism, pesticides in the food, just everything negative we've ever done, and to each other or to the earth. And there's lots of environmental type songs. I've done a couple of those in my career, maybe two, I'm not sure, over the years. But when I did them, it was just another subject to write about. It was an observation, right? Like most of my tunes are to do with me or family or friends, what they're going through, or something on the news or something going on, or a story or something funny or whatever. So this was just another subject I had written down to write about, but then I actually sort of got a lightning bolt moment where I put it all together, all these things I wrote down on paper of, not on the song, but just on paper, of all the terrible things that humanity's been doing to the earth and to us and to animals and to just everything. And
yeah, I know where you're coming from then, because I'm a big animal supporter.
I never really, legitimately gave a shit about any of this stuff, ever. Like, it was always like, I knew I shouldn't pollute. I knew that it's bad to treat animals wrong. I knew all that stuff. I knew companies are doing this to the ozone and blah, blah, blah. But I never actually sat down and realized it. It was like an awakening. And unfortunately, there's not really much I can do, but that was a personal kind of song. It developed into something very personal where you realize, you sit back and it's just pure disgust. I mean, it's just horrible where we are in the world today. And I know there's a lot of good people and a lot of good things being done. Yeah. But it's 99% pathetic. It's sad. Everything's just pessimistic right now.
I could totally talk to you for hours on that subject. Absolutely.
Yeah, well, I just decided, you know what? I said 99% pessimistic because, even if everybody changed everything around now, it would be pretty tough to reverse some of the things we've already done. And we're not going to reverse everything. There's no way you're going to, stop everything from extreme religion to the pollution, to the climate change, to the drug problems, the drug companies. You go on, and my list was about 3 pages of things, and I was thinking, I only have a few lines to put in a bloody song. I could do a whole album about this. Yeah. But at the same time, I don't want to shoot myself in the head listening to a record like that after I hear it,
No. Be pretty depressive, wouldn't it, really?
Yeah, the actual song means a lot to me mostly because of what you don't see or hear in the song. The other 2 or 3 pages I wrote of all the other terrible things, I'm like, oh my God. So the 99% pessimistic thing, the 1% is that the last line sort of, I could write a book in the last line too, if I was educated in what's going on in the world, but I'm not. But the last line just says, it's not too late to change some of this stuff around, but boy, we better get our shit together quicker. We're not going to change any of it. It's going to get worse, and run out of fuel, run out of this, everything's just going to go to hell.
Well, it's really thoughtful, actually. It's a thoughtful point. It's good that someone like you, though, can actually make a point like this. I mean, people are going to listen to you.
Yeah, it's not something I could go out and preach and all that, because I don't know anything about any of this stuff, or how to even begin to even think of how the hell would you fix any of it, right? So, but the thing is, I guess, the spin-off is at least I got that on my system, and hopefully I'm actually going to be a little better person over the next years, because I've sort of had that awakening, and maybe I'll do some more things to help in my own little way, help some things out. But mainly it's just a song, but at the same time, it's the cover ended up being a very light, cartoony version of the idea of that. It sort of ties in. It's just, I've always liked Terminator and movies, the first Terminator movie, and those kind of Annihilator, Iron Man, that kind of.
Oh, you're a geek like me, yes.
And it's not like I like the movies, Iron Man and all that stuff. It's I like this sort of living slash robot. Just whenever I see these things like, District 9, and whenever I see things like that, it's like, oh, cool.
Yeah, inspiration.
Yeah, and that ended up being a very simple, sort of semi-separate concept of if there was a god or a creator or something out there that started all this, could Earth be just simply an experiment? Life got dropped, bacteria, some microorganism got dropped on the Earth as an experiment to see what happens. And so far we've completely failed the experiment, and whoever's up there, whatever's up there, sent a machine, creature, whatever, down to just get rid of us all and start the experiment over again and see if we can do it right. And I'm not in the best shape, so I need to either, I need to basically get in better shape over the next years and really take it more seriously. And I'd love to keep singing. I just have a lot of work to do, like not talk in the day. I won't be able to do interviews at the shows. Like example, Wagner, we're playing on the Saturday night on one of the stages, big stages, Saturday. So it's like a big thing for us. We played there 2 years ago with Rammstein and Deep Purple, and us were the only bands playing. And now 2 years later, we're playing the Saturday night. So
yeah,
huge deal. But of course, I've got literally 20, 30 people that want to do interviews around that show, and there's not a chance I'm doing one.
You need to save yourself. I think my point, sorry, I missed the point. I missed giving you the point of the question. The point of the question was, Jeff, do you think is it important to you to have so much control over your records? That's what I was trying to get across. I apologize.
Sorry. Yeah, well, I just, from an early age at the beginning of this, when I tried to get a full band together, and I found, because we were so young, that a lot of the guys just wanted to go off with their girlfriends and go to clubs and have the nice hair and the clothes and look like rock stars.
Yeah.
But to sit down there, on a weekend, 10 hours a day working on what you're doing is not something a 17-year-old kid usually thinks about unless you're, Hetfield or like one of these kids that knew right away as a teenager that's what they wanted to do.
Yeah.
And I was that kid. I knew this is what I wanted to do. I didn't care about anything else, even girlfriends and booze and cigarettes and all that stuff. That was the good stuff, right? I mean, that was all that was secondary. And
well, it's destructive, isn't it? It would have been destructive to your career, and look how successful you've been without it.
Well, yeah, and then some of the big rock stars always say this comment that they put their hard work in the early days, stayed away from the drugs, booze, the cigarettes, the fine foods, the women. I say the women in general, not to be degrading, but the guys say that, and then they go, and then they put all the hard work in and go without all these nice things. I'm not saying cigarettes are nice, but these things that you ended up later doing.
Yeah.
Meaning the girls too. That was a joke, I guess. Anyway, bad joke.
Okay, I get it.
Yeah, okay. And then the hard work pays off. Now you're in a band, and now all of a sudden you don't have a problem getting a girlfriend. You don't have a problem getting access to the party life, and not that that's the right thing to do, but the party stuff, it's all there that you maybe wanted to do when you were a teenager, and all your friends were out having fun partying and that. But that's what happened to me. I ended up getting all these things that my teenage friends were doing when they were 17,
yes,
16, 18. I all of a sudden was doing, when I was, my first record came out, it was like a Kid in the Candy Store. It was just phenomenal. And that's the tragedy, because usually that'll kill you or kill your career, just getting led into that Sin City.
Yeah.
I don't even know what you're saying. Control, yes. I learned at a very young age. I'm on. Here goes the next round. I knew right away if the bass player didn't show up, then I better learn how to play the bass. And if the singer didn't show up, then I needed to write the lyrics. And if he didn't show up for the demo, I needed to sing on the demo. So that's really where this all went, and it ended up being a 25-year run of lineup changes that were most of them intentional, which was mostly I would hire a drummer for the studio and got a singer, and then we'd finish the record, the three of us, and I would look at musicians to go on tour. So we'd need to hire a guitar player and a bass player, and when that was all done, I'd do the record and maybe find some other people I wanted to play with. So it's like a solo project in the studio, creative area, and the business area, and then in the touring thing, it's a band.
You sound like you've got your head screwed on. Absolutely wonderful. Can I just ask, do you have any personal favorite songs on this album?
Favorite songs, you mean?
A personal favorite? Or was
Suicide Society.
Suicide Society, yeah.
And yeah, there's two others. One called Snap and one called Creepin' Again. And Creepin' Again reminds me of our demos that I did in where I was singing in a demo called Phantasmagoria in 1986, and it actually led to a record deal. And the first song was called Gallery of the Grotesque, and it was like a complete one of those things where the singer there, so I sang. And I couldn't get the singer to do it, and he left the band, and I just sang this thing, and I didn't know how to sing, so I was doing like death metal, and you know, I started this death metal singing in '84, and realized that there was only a few people that actually did that kind of thing. I didn't start anything at all, but only a year or two before that was that style of singing out there, and it was I only did it because I couldn't sing notes. I didn't know how to sing.
Annihilator's debut album, Alice in Hell, which was out in 1989, was recently ranked by VH1 as the 10th greatest thrash album of all time. Wow. So how does it feel for Alice in Hell to be alongside the albums like Kill 'Em All by Metallica, Killing Is My Business and Business Is Good by Megadeth? How does that feel?
Well, there's a couple of sides. One, it's an honor. Two, it's great for publicity. It's great promotion to draw in people that don't know your band when they hear lists like that, or especially coming from such a big entity like a VH1. And it's an honor. The other side is the list is missing a whole bunch of really good debut albums.
Yeah.
Exodus, Bonded by Blood. There's a whole. So the list is totally debatable, and that's the cool thing is that. That's where the attention comes from. It may be just one person might have drawn that top 10 list up at VH1, and now it's being represented by VH1. Like people think that organization thinks those are the 10 best. And it may simply be just a list one guy drew up and threw out there, and now everybody's arguing around the world about that top 10 list now. And it's great publicity for them, and it's
yeah, it's attention, isn't it? It's attention in the right places, though.
Yeah, it's like, please come up with more lists and put us somewhere on there. Even if we don't like, give us the worst top 10 bands ever and put us on there at number 10. That's great too, because then people will argue and say, no, Annihilator shouldn't be on the worst list. They should be on the best list.
Wow, I think you're amazing, actually. So you've just been in Hanover, I believe, and you were shooting, was it 2 videos for the new album? How did that go, and how do you see the videos?
Yeah, that was a very memorable part of the last 6 months. Not the video shoot, but the fact that the distributor Warner and the record company UDR. That was the first time since the late 80s and early 90s that a record company called me up and said, we want to do a video, but said they wanted to do 2. Was
2 videos,
more of a crazy step. And usually I'm begging them for 1, because usually you have to borrow the money for the video off either your government programs, or you have to borrow it off the record company, and you pay that back, that loan off, through the sale of your little tiny piece of the sale of the record. So in other words, it almost never gets paid off, right? Usually for most bands. So this time they called up and said, listen, the distributor Warner and us, we really want a video for the song Snap and Suicide Society. And it was just like, you serious? Yes, and we'd like to pay first-class tickets to get you guys over here in about a week and a half. And we're like, really?
Wow! Come on, you must have been really chuffed then.
Yeah, it was great. And I was like, well, that's awesome, and I appreciate it. Thank you, but don't we need a concept? And they're like, don't worry, we'll get a good company here, and we'll just scramble and do it last minute. Send the lyrics and what the songs are about. And that's literally what we did in 10 days is found a fantastic company. I thought it'd be like, 3 guys with 3 cameras, a home video camera, and one guy with a really nice camera, and somebody there to, somebody's girlfriend to do makeup. I know that doesn't sound right how I said that, but, just a sort of
I understand.
Yeah. It's just a sort of lower budget thing, and we get there, and there's like, 14 people, and then 3 camera guys with the proper cranes and tracks and booms and all this fancy stuff, and we're like asking the main guy what other bands he did, and I was just like, oh my god, this is cool. So
wow.
So we did these two shoots there, and then we get back, and they kept me in Hanover for a week because I wasn't supposed to do press yet. But they said you're here, and we really get a lot of people like curious about this now. So let's start. And I'm like, well, this is almost 4 months before the release of the album. Why are you guys doing this? This is ridiculous. And I guess there we go. They said with all the videos, we can keep the hype going and keep people at least interested in checking it out, you know. And now they want a third video, and I'm like, are you guys nuts? I'm not paying for that. They said, okay, don't. They said, okay, we'll pay for it. So they want to
Are
do
you
a third
serious?
video.
Wow.
Oh yeah, it's for the 3 songs I mentioned, Snap, Suicide Society, and then the song Creepin' Again is one of my favorites because it is straight out of 1985 Annihilator demo years. That song, it's really brought back, and that's what, is that 30 years? That's basically a 30-year-old song in my head translated a different way. They're not really similar, but the vibe of it's from that era to me. And they said, we've got 2 professionally shot videos here. Let's go back to Canada when you guys are rehearsing in your new studio. Just get a crew out there and just do a sort of like a really raw kind of, how Slayer just released their single, Relentless, and to me it's fantastic. But they also did a sort of video clip that goes with the music that they released, and it's just a casual thing of them live and not even in sync. It's just some footage thrown together over the song. And when we saw that at the label, they just said, listen, we got to do this for Annihilator too.
Wow. You must actually sometimes just sit back and... Do you ever just sit back and look at your life and think, wow, I'm so glad I made those choices. I'm doing a good job, and this is the right path for me?
Well, a lot of the choices made were the wrong choices, but...
But they got you to the end, though. They were a means to an end.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you realize the negative things that happened. It's the cliche thing is, I've learned from my mistakes, and you do, but there's also, it's kind of fate in a way because things do change. Like if an incident happens, it changes everything else. And maybe this negative thing happened for a reason, and then you find out, I don't know, it's a combination of luck and a lot of luck, but if you don't have the hard work and
talent, don't forget your talent.
That's the hard work that was done in the early days, and I guess some of it you got to be born with, some of it you have to really work for literally decades, and some of it you have to sit down and forget about music and start to learn a bit about the business, and then realize you need to learn a lot about it, and then you have to start, you can't get screwed up on drugs or booze, you just can't do it, otherwise you can't keep your mind clear to take care of your business.
Yeah, you don't take care of yourself. If you can't take care of yourself, then you can't take care of anything else. So.
Well, it's also contrary to rock and roll and punk and everything that I grew up on, and metal. I mean, it was party time, but I think it's great and you can last for the early years. But then when the first chance is sort of done for a band, most musicians are left broke, bitter, and with some addiction issues or maybe health issues, and what do I do with my career, with my life, and then that can lead to depression, and you just see it happening in most artists, and I just had, we say in Canada, horseshoes up my ass, which, I don't know if you...
I love that, can I use that quote?
Yeah, horseshoes up my ass.
I love it. That sounds like an Irishism.
Yeah, well, see, we have the queen, your queen on our money. We were obviously part of your thing, so I didn't know if that was an expression you knew or not.
Well, here's another question for you, which is not on my list, okay? I've just thought of it. You're coming to Ireland, to Dublin in October, I think October the 10th. I'm going to see if I can interview you face to face, and you can tell me, and you will be doing it, and you can tell me about the horseshoe then.
Oh, yeah. No, you know what? I'll have to get a sort of Stephen Hawking's computer device because I'm not going to talk on that tour.
I'll get somebody to tell me your stories.
They'll translate it.
Yeah, I could talk to you all day, but I know you're a very busy man, and I had at least 10 more questions, so I'm just going to finish off.
You know what?
Yeah.
I've said 1 more minute. She's just given up. She just said, fuck it.
No way! I could talk to you all day. You're fantastic. One more question.
No, but it just means there's one more person after you that's sitting there waiting for the phone call that they think is never coming, and then all of a sudden we're going to give them a nervous breakdown because I am going to phone and I'm going to talk their ear off.
Again? All right.
I think I might be out of energy.
Yeah, I think you talked enough actually for 10 people there now. Right, give me a message for your fans and then I will let you go. Go on.
Okay, now I'm going to end the message to the fans the complete opposite of how I did the interview.
Okay.
Hope you like the new album. Check it out. I love you.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm going to let you go, hon, and have a really good day. Thank you.
Yeah, maybe see you on the tour. Thanks.
You will. I'll be in Dublin. Don't you? Front and center. Don't you worry about that.
Awesome. I'll see you later.
Thank you. See you later. Bye.
Bye. Thanks.